Welcome to Algebra 1. Today is May 12th. Like always, try to have a pencil and a sheet of paper for notes. If possible, find some quiet space where you can actually listen and watch this video and then take some notes. And then if you have any questions after this, if maybe you don't understand the content, make sure to come to office hours. Office hours are on Wednesdays and Fridays from 2 to 3 p.m. In the comments, if you can go ahead and type in how you're feeling, that not only does this let me know how you're feeling, it also gives me an idea that you were able to watch the video. So by you commenting and telling me you're at a 0 to 10, I know that you watched the video for the day. So today is Tuesday, May 12th, and the objectives are that you will write equations from standard form to slope-intercept form. But before we do that, I want us to go ahead and review the do now. So when we look at question number 1, this is something that we've been working on since the start of the school year. Oops, there we go. All right, so whenever we have a variable and then it's being divided by 6, remember that that symbol signifies division. In order to get rid of that 6, we have to do the opposite. So what's the opposite of division? It's multiplication. So we go ahead and multiply each side by 6. This cancels out because first you're dividing by 6, then you're multiplying by 6, so that cancels out. And then when I take the calculator and I multiply 19 times 6, I get 114. And that's it for number 1. Now when we look at question 2, we need to see, well, which equations is graphed by this, is represented by this graph. So first thing I like to look for is I like to look for the y-intercept. So looking at the y-axis, I look at where does the line cross, and it crosses at +2. So I know that in my answers, I have to look for the one that has +2 in this space. I know it cannot be A because it has +1. This one has +1, so it cannot be C. This has +1, so it cannot be B. So this one was actually pretty easy because the only one that has +2 in the place of the y-intercept is D. Notice that for the slope, meaning the number in front of the x, there's an imaginary 1. And then we would do 1 over 1 as your slope. So from here we go up 1, right 1, up 1, right 1, and that shows the correct response. So our answer we would select is, well, we would select the answer D for that. So let's go ahead and read this problem. So you have $30 to spend on downloading songs for your iPhone. Company A charges 79 cents per song, and Company B charges 99 cents per song. Write an equation that models the situation. So this is something we're going to come back to after we go through the problem. But what we're working on today is solving systems and equations, at least the introduction part. And it's not something we're necessarily doing just yet. It's more of an introduction, and we're just trying to go from slope-intercept form to standard form or vice versa. So this is what we're going to learn today is something that you need to know in order to create a problem like this. So standard form. Oh, that's missing a whole letter. So standard form, let me make a correction because it's missing it, is actually AX plus BY is equal to C. That is standard form. Okay. So notice that the X is in this place. Usually there's a number in front of it. So it might be a number and then your variable. So a number X plus a number Y is equal to another number. In order to write an equation from standard form to slope-intercept form, we're going to go ahead and write the equation y equals mx plus b at the top. So we just write y equals mx plus b. Then we write out the equation that you have been given. Then we rearrange the equation so that it is in the form of y equals mx plus b. And then you state the slope and the y-intercept. So I know that this is just these steps, and the steps might not necessarily make sense until you're given a problem. So let's go ahead and work through this. So we're going to look at our example 1. We're going to write 6x plus 3y equals negative 24 in slope-intercept form. So using the steps that were given on the previous slide. So my very first step is to write the equation y equals mx plus b. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write at the top y equals mx plus b. Now write out the equation that was given. So the equation that was given is this one up here at the top. It was 6x plus 3y equals negative 24. Notice that these don't match yet. Look at where the x is and look at where the y is. They're not in the same place. We want them to be in the same place as this. This is what we're trying to create. So we want y by itself, and we want it on the left side, and we want everything else on the right side. So we're going to go ahead and now we did step 1, we did step 2. Now we need to rearrange the equation. So we need to figure out how can we get y by itself. Okay. So first thing and the easiest thing to move is a 6x. So I want to go ahead and move it from one side to the other side because we want it to be on the right side of the equation. So right side of the equal sign. So we do the opposite. If this is positive 6x, what's the opposite? The opposite is negative 6x. Whatever I do to one side, I do to the other side. That cancels out, and that leaves me with 3y is equal to, now this is where I have to be very careful because if we remember our rules of combining like terms, whenever there's an x, you cannot just combine it with a number unless this number also has an x. So because we cannot combine them because it has that x attached to it, it has that variable, we just write it as negative 6x minus 24. Notice I just put them down. The reason why I put the x first is because we are trying to get it in this order. We're trying to get we're trying to get the x before the number. So that's why I put it in that order. Next, I see, well, do I have y by itself? I don't. Notice I still have a number in front of y. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of that 3. I know that anytime I have a number and a variable together, that means multiplication. So to get rid of it, I do the opposite, which is division. So I divide each side by 3. And keep in mind, you have to divide the whole thing by 3. Another way to write this, instead of writing it the way that I wrote it, another way would be to write it as like this. You divide that by 3, and you divide that by 3. And if you had more numbers, each one would be divided by 3. Because if you do it to one side, you do it to the other side, meaning you do it to all of the other side, not just some numbers and not others. So we go negative 6 divided by 3. I know that that is negative 2, and the x comes with it. And then negative 24 divided by 3, I know that that is negative 8. And now that is slope-intercept form, because notice now it looks like this equation. These two match because we have our y equals m, which is negative 2, x plus b, which is negative 8. Now, what is my slope here? My slope is negative 2. And what is my y-intercept? My y-intercept is negative 8. And that's how we solve this equation. So let's look at another example. So again, following those same exact steps, I'm going to write y equals mx plus b. Just as a reminder that that's what we're doing. I'm going to write out the equation that was given, which was 3x plus 2y equals 8. And then we're going to rearrange the question to make it look like this. So again, the point is to get y by itself. So what do I get rid of easily? Or what's the easiest to get rid of? And that would be the 3x. You go and subtract 3x from each side. Whatever I do to one side, I do to the other side. That leaves me with 2y equals, and then I cannot combine those because not both of them are just numbers, and then not both of them have variables. So I write negative 3x plus 8. Again, I put the one with the x first because I'm trying to get it into this format. Now, is y by itself? The answer would be no, it's not, because it still has a 2 attached to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide that by 2. And then remember that I can just write it as all of it divided by 2, but to remind me to divide each number by 2, I like to do it this way. divide both of them by 2. That leaves me with y is equal to, now this, if I were to plug it into a calculator, it's going to give me a decimal. It would give me negative 1.5. But because we are doing slope, slope has a rise overrun, meaning I like to keep it as a fraction because then it tells me that I'm going to go down 3, or right, and then right 2. So in other words, I like to leave it as it is. I like to leave it as a fraction when it comes to slope. So we have negative 3 over 2x. And then I know that 8 divided, and you leave it as a fraction if it's not a whole number. So if it's going to give you a decimal on the calculator, that's when you leave it as a fraction. So then looking at the plus 8 divided by 2, I plug that into my calculator, and I know that that's positive 4. So I rearranged the equation to make it look like this. These two now match. I know that my slope is equal to negative 3 over 2. And I know that my y-intercept is going to be equal to 4. And that's it for that equation. So let's see, we do have a bit of time to practice a few more. So I'm just going to guide you through these. If you are watching this video at home, this is a really good time for you to pause the video, give it a try on your own, and then play the video so I can guide you through the steps. But after you've given it a try and you've practiced on your own. So to solve this problem, so this is step 1 where I just write that out. This was step 2 where I write what was given, and step 3 is rearranging. Trying to get y by itself. Five divided by 5 is 1. So when I graph this, I know that my slope is going to be negative 2/5. And I know my y-intercept is going to be 1. And then I repeat the process with this one. My first step is I write y equals mx plus b. Sorry, that's an m. My second step would be I rewrite the problem. And then my third step is I rearrange it. Oh, and then this was my fourth step. So get y by itself. Now here, so it's negative x, so there's an imaginary 1. I would actually leave it, I can leave it as is, or I can write it like this so it's a little bit more clear when it comes to writing your slope. And then step 4 would just be identifying your slope and your y-intercept. My slope is in front of my x. My y-intercept is at negative 4. So now going back to our problem where you have $30 to spend on downloading songs for your company. Company A charges 79 cents per song and company B charges 99 cents per song. Write an equation that models the situation. So we know that company A, so let's call it just A, charges a specific amount per song, plus company B charges another amount per song for their songs, right? So company A charges this amount for their songs. Company B charges this amount for their songs. And that's going to give you a total. So now we know that company A charges 79 cents. So I would just put 79 cents per song. We don't know how many songs they're going to buy. That's what we're trying to figure out. Company B, we know, charges 99 cents per song. And that's from their company, songs from their company. That's why we put it as Y. And then I know that I have $30 to spend all together. Okay? So your equation would look like this. And notice that's something that we've been working on. If we go to our previous slides, notice that this equation was 2x plus 5y equals 5 for question number 1. It looks similar to this. The only difference is it has decimals, and that's because we are talking about money. So if you have any questions about this lesson, I am available for office hours on Wednesdays and on Fridays from 2 to 3. And then if I have you for tutorial lab, I am also available during that period on Schoology to answer any questions you have. But also if you message me, I try to respond as quickly as possible to try to assist you guys in the best way I can. So please send me any questions you might have through Schoology. So what are our next steps? Our next steps for class are make sure to complete the do now for today, complete the exit ticket, and then make sure to do the CFA 3As if you haven't done it already. So on that list of assignments, you'll see something that says CFA 3A pretest. Please make sure to complete that if you haven't already. And then before class on Thursday, make sure to complete the do now for that class, which will be available as soon as this class is over. So again, if you have questions, I have office hours on Wednesdays and Fridays from 2 to 3 p.m.